Alright, so this video is something okay in Elden Ring by Ink Ninja. The first thing I'll say is obviously it is okay. I said this before, we've had discussions on this stream quite a few times about Elden Ring and how people gatekeep certain things and how the goalpost always moves based on what one person does. Like someone only does like a 100% strength build. They don't upgrade anything else. They just walk around fat rolling with a big ass freaking great with a great sword or freaking colossal sword. That person will think anything that isn't also a strength build, a colossal sword, is you know cheesing the game. End of the day, all that matters is if you're enjoying yourself, if you're having fun with the game, you bought the game. What someone else tells you isn't the way to play the game, or like you don't have to listen to anybody. You have to listen to me. It's listen to anybody. Play the game however you want. You pay for it, it's your game. Not to mention Elden Ring, for the most part, is a single player game. Who gives a fuck about how you play the game? It doesn't affect anybody else. Like yeah, there's PvP, but it's mostly a single player game. You can play the game offline for crying out loud. Who gives a shit? Something exists in the game. If it's a part of the game, if the developers put it in the game, then you can do it. It's in the game. It's literally something that they designed into the game. So that's something that's like a mod that allows you to cheese. It exists because it exists. Personally, when it comes to me myself, when it comes to player summoning, I don't do it. I literally don't even play any Souls game online. I just don't. I just don't care about player summons. I just want to play the freaking game. Whatever. I go AFK a lot, so I also don't want to be like AFK while online. When it comes to NPC summons, I think NPC summons are okay if it's part of a storyline. For example, if you're playing Dark Souls 3 and you're doing Henri's quest line, you're going to have to freaking, do some summons involving freaking, going to like the Ultra's boss fight. So storyline wise, I think summons are cool are okay when it comes to like NPCs, NPC storylines. Outside of that, myself personally, I don't use NPC summons when it's not involved in storylines. If you want to use NPC summon on every boss in every Souls game, have at it. Do whatever the fuck you want. It's your game. When it comes to like the Ash summons in Elden Ring, again, if you want to do it, do it. Who cares? It's your game. Personally, I like to have a playthrough where I don't use them, but I will have a playthrough where I do use them because I just want to try new things out. Like I said before, I have 8 characters in Elden Ring. Usually in every Souls game, I have at least 8 freaking characters, including the Game Plus characters, because I want to just try out new shit and try out different shit from beginning to end, not freaking respecking. So, I do have a playthrough where I do use the jellyfish, and just because it's like I don't want to see how much poison them bitch can do even in high tiers. I do have playthroughs where I use magic because I just want to try it out. This Elden Ring is the first Souls game where I actually made a magic build. Because of Elden Ring, I actually went back to Dark Souls 3 to make a magic build just to try it out. It's like, hey, this is actually kind of fun, and that's what matters. Are you having fun? I made a magic build Elden Ring just to try it out. And I've been playing Souls games, since Dark Souls 1 came out, and never did a magic build. So I did an Elden Ring, had so much fun with it. I went back to Dark Souls 3, made a magic build. Let's watch this video.
FromSoft Souls games are undeniably one of the most popular games out there right now. It's a beloved franchise that has a very dedicated fan base. But what's interesting about it is, even though there's a very dedicated fan base, some of the fan base does
Yes, we
not
have Boba.
want players to utilize some of the tools that it gives you. Summons, sorceries, incantations. It's a very interesting idea that isn't actually explored in other games. Why?
Also, I was going to point this out when it comes to like how the goalpost is always moved by the community. You notice that incantations don't give freaking the same amount of freaking like flack as spell builds. Like if you do a faith build and like you're doing or a piracy build, no one gives you the same amount of shit that they would if you were doing like an actual freaking like spellcaster or a spell blade. Because again, there's no consistency. You can make some crazy busted freaking builds. For example, I have a black flame build in Elden Ring, and that black flame build is fucking insane. It just destroys shit. And if you look at things based on if it's too easy to do, then it's cheesing. Then that's cheesing. If you can make a build that does insane amounts of damage to bosses, then through a certain lens, you can look at it as being cheap or cheesy. The whole thought process behind summoning not being okay, air quotes, or magic builds not being okay, is because it makes the game easier. It's like, well, making any build makes it easier if you're good at making a build. It's just generally how it is.
God of War, can I play all these items and games, whatever is the most game-breaking combo, and it'd be perfectly seen as fine? But when I play Elden Ring, I cast Glintstone Shard, and then suddenly everyone starts losing their minds. It's a very interesting take, and that's what we're going to be exploring today. But before we get into that, guys, make sure to hit that like and subscribe if you like me talking about Elden Ring or Souls-like videos. I go on to the idea of talking about the philosophy of these things instead of like what is the best build or anything, just like some core ideas that isn't really explored anywhere else. And if you have any ideas, hit up the comments below, Discord and Twitch below. Let's get started. A good place to start to try and understand this weird niche is to first talk about why people even care about this. Well, we must first look at one of the core concepts of Souls games, and that is its difficulty. It is an alluring factor that draws in many people with the tempt of a challenge. And challenge is good. It stimulates growth and makes you be able to do things you normally wouldn't
And
be.
here's what I'll say on like that. It doesn't playing with summons and we're playing with a magic build or even we're playing with the faith build doesn't erase difficulty. It'll make the game easier on you in certain ways, but also you have to know how to do your build. You know, you don't just play a magic build and all of a sudden voila, you're going to be freaking cakewalking the game. No, you need to actually know how to freaking, you know, allocate your points. You gotta know what spells to use, you gotta know what stats are the good stats, you gotta know how to upgrade those stats and what points you switch out that staff for another staff. And at the same time, different bosses we hate in different ways. So you might destroy freaking Godric with a freaking, you know, sorcerer build, but then the very next boss might freaking, you know, destroy the hell out of you because, you know, the way they behave doesn't give you the time to actually utilize your spells at all, and you're kind of going to want to freaking, you know, do some melee because you kind of need to, because you can't get the chance to even cast spells. Then people go, well, that's why a lot of those people use Moonblade. It's like, it's in the game, yeah, it's strong, but again, there's a lot of stuff in the game that's very, very strong. It's just all about how you the player play. So again, this video is about summons, so let's use the summon conversation. The easiest thing that summons do for you in this game, or any Soulsborne game, is distraction. That's the strongest asset that a summon has. Distraction. That distraction allows you to get heals off. That distraction allows you to get huge chunks of damage because the boss is not, you know, doing any damage to you. These games, especially when it comes to like Elden Ring now, back in it, when it came to like Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, the AI wasn't as strong, but the AI is strong enough now to where the boss will attack whoever's, you know, doing a lot of damage. So even if you get the like a summon to get the attention, the second you start getting, you know, 2-3 hits in, now the boss is back to hitting you. So again, the strongest asset of a summon is just be a distraction. So most people, when it comes to when they'll cave and use a summon, it's usually in any kind of boss fight where there's more than one boss. Because at that point, they're like, okay, if I can use Mimic Tear to like distract this boss, I can focus on this boss, and then by the time this boss dies, Mimic Tear is dead, I can only win the other boss. So it's like, you know, it's a 2v2 situation, and it kind of seems fair. But again, generally, the strength of a summon is to be a distraction. The thing about summons in general, though, that a lot of people tend to forget is From Software is fully aware of what's in their game. They designed this game, duh. One of the ways they do counteract summons is if you do a summon, if you do NPC summon, ash summons, the bosses actually get extra health. So that's just how they're designed. Bosses get more health if you're doing summons, and it actually modifies the more you have. So for example, Radahn he's been nerfed quite a bit, and it's about OG Radahn, not DLC Radahn. He's been nerfed a bit. But when you do the Radahn the storyline way, aka the festival, he actually has more health and does more damage because you're doing all those summons. So in a way, he actually be easier for you to fight if you didn't do the storyline way of fighting Radahn, because you actually won't be having to deal with those modifiers. So summons do have a negative downside to them in the fact that that the bosses actually have modified health and damage because you're doing those summons. It's not a guarantee, you know, win, unless you're an actual good player and you have them as a distraction. Because if you're actually a good player and you just use summons to have like a fast, you know, run through, then yeah, because you're taking advantage of the distraction and you're doing a lot of freaking damage. But at the same time, you'll be doing a lot of damage anyways, even without the summons, because as I keep saying, it's very easy to make a build that is just insane.
Able to do under normal circumstances. But let's say you have a goal in mind. The goal is to get promoted to the next position at your job, and you got Kevin over here who also has that goal in mind. Now Kevin actually knows the boss, and surprise surprise, Mr. Kev over here gets the promo. How are you gonna feel? you're going to feel a certain type of way because you're naturally competitive and you feel like this was not in a fair roundabout way of getting that promotion. And that's why so many people feel weird about it, because to them it feels unfair. They went through the thorn bushes with the big bonk stick and just bonked, while Kevin went through the sunny road with this baby in the sky.
And I know we're pausing the game pretty soon here, but that's a choice. If someone decides to use a summon in any game and they have an easier time freaking winning the fight, that's a choice. If you choose to go in with a big bonk stick, as he describes it, that's your choice. You're choosing to do that. You can't be mad at someone else beating something in a way that they did it when you chose the way that you did it. I have a bow build in Elden Ring. If that bow build has a situation, because bows aren't crazy good, but they are decent in Elden Ring. Other Soul-like games, Soul-born games, they're not. But in Elden Ring, they're actually like pretty good. But regardless of that, there has been, and there's going to be more, because I haven't beat the game with the bow build yet. There's going to be bosses, and there has been bosses where it's a struggle to use the bow because the way that they move, their size, their attacks. So like that difficulty is on me, not because the boss is actually hard, because the way I'm playing the game, the build that I'm choosing to use makes it harder on me. So it's the same thing because anyone, if you're playing a character build where the game feels hard on you because you're not using flask, you're not using buffs, you're not using whatever, that's a choice that you made on yourself. You input that extra difficulty on yourself, not the game.
Smiling at him casting incantations with summons tanking everything for him. But is that really cheesy? Is that really bad? Is that really something worth even complaining about? As someone who has beaten the game as a level 1 wretch, no, I don't think it is. While the principles of Souls-like games have things such as a no pause button, no easy mode, losing all your souls, which act as both a currency and experience upon death with the chance of picking it back up, difficult enemies, etc., these are expected from a FromSoft Souls games. These are the pillars that have been built upon since Dark Souls' success and have been adopted as the personality traits that come with a Souls-like game. Utilizing only certain tools in FromSoft games, however, is not a trait developed from FromSoft. This is from the hardcore fanbase who feel the need to gatekeep their favorite game in hopes of keeping the purity of X thing only runs. What people don't understand, though, is not everyone is wanting to do a challenge run. Not everyone is wanting to experience the game in that type of way. Personally, I don't use summons. Solo run my first challenge on bosses and never use magic or alternative forms of range.
But me, my first build is always just, my ideal build, which is usually like a dex build, because I love freaking using katanas. I love using, I love having like a dex build. So like, dex strength is more so the balance of it. You can call it, you can pretty much just call it a balanced build because I do put a lot to strength, but Dex is the primary thing for most of my builds. When it comes to my first character in Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, Elden Ring, like my first character is always a Dex build, and I don't freaking do summons. I don't freaking I don't even if there's a buff like the flask in Elden Ring, I will use that, but I don't really use buffs in like the other games in terms of like doing like an incantation things like that. Nope, it's just me, my sword, and my freaking my flask, and we're just gonna go on there and fight the boss. And then after that first playthrough, that's when I start to like do other things. Like I'll make a pyromancy build, I'll make a black flame build, I'll make a bow build, I'll make a spell blade, because I don't want to do all magic, but I do want to do magic while also still using like a sword a lot. It's like I'll do different builds after that first playthrough. I want that to be like my pure playthrough.
By personal choice, and if someone wants to summon, then let them have at it, as it would be incredibly ignorant of me to deny that person an enjoyable experience in the game that the developers designed an option for. This is a game meant to be enjoyed. As long as the basic principles of the game's franchise are not being broken for the sake of mass appeal, ruining the identity and personality traits of said game, then there isn't nothing wrong with someone experiencing it their way. Now, cheesing bosses, manipulating the game in a way that it's breaking in an unintended way, that's another topic. For instance, you can make certain enemies such as the Iron Golem in Dark Souls 1 fall in a certain way that instantly kills him. Is that still considered bad, or is that considered okay? This is an interesting discussion that actually I can go either way on. On one hand, it does allow cinematic like realism to the fight to make it feel less than a static enemy and more or less something organic. If an enemy plummets to their death by positioning him in said way, it rewards creativity and skill by allowing the user to acquire an easier victory in a realistic type of way. Or at least as realistic as a fantasy RPG.
But I will say about something like this, like the Iron Golem or the Ceaseless Discharge, which you can fight that straight up, or you can do like the little cheese where you run to like the entrance and hit his freaking little hand, whatever the hell that thing is. If it hasn't been patched out, then I just see that as the developer saying, hey, it's in the game. It's not a bug, it's a feature. If you can get the boss to be in that position to like fall off the freaking ledge, GG's. That's kind of like how I see it.
Can be. However, on the other hand, most, if not all, are
but
not.
I'll also say this: if you're like doing other like ways to like glitch, because like I don't think that the ceaseless discharge is a glitch. I don't think the golem falling off is a glitch. But if you're doing like actual like player found glitches, I feel like that is bad and wrong.
Not intended by developers as a win condition, and some actually have been patched, so it leads to a question of if the developer's final say is the guideline we should follow or we should shun. Of course, this isn't following the unintended game-breaking bugs such as the frost proc issue in Elden Ring's first patch that would straight up just delete a boss. Kind of ruined my level 1 wretch run, not going to lie. But that basically covers everything in this video. Why? Anyway, guys, that's the end of the video. Yes, it's okay to use your summons, your sorceries, and incantations. Do not feel like you have to justify yourself for utilizing tools that are given to you by the developer himself, Miyazaki. Go ahead and use them. It's perfectly okay. For everyone else that doesn't feel like it's okay, listen, man, you just need to take a relax pill, just chill. They can use it. It's not going to hurt you. You're fine. Now, guys, if you like the video...
Yeah, that's the big one. The big one is if you're someone who's against the idea of people using summons or using freaking magic or using this or using that, whatever, it doesn't have any effect on you. You can play your game the way you want to play your game, and it doesn't, like, understand this. When you have, like, that take of you can't use summons in this game, that's a narcissistic, like, thought process. You are a narcissist, you are self-centered, and you think you're the main character when you're not. You're just another dude on the internet, or chick on the internet, another person who's non-binary on the internet. You're just one person. What someone does in a game, especially a single player game, does not affect you at all. Like, at all. Why do you care? Play your game, enjoy yourself the way you enjoy yourself. Go do the colossal sword build and never touch freaking, ash summons or player summons or whatever, and just live your life. You don't have to tell other people or tell people, oh, you didn't beat the game because you did this. You didn't beat the game because you did that. They beat the fucking game. If it's in the game, and I get it. When I was younger, because again, it's all about maturity. When I was younger, like back in the day, in the teenage years, like 14 and whatnot, I kind of had a similar mindset that came to Halo. Like, I would say, if you didn't beat Halo on at least heroic, you didn't beat Halo. If you played on normal or easy, in my opinion, back then, you didn't beat Halo, because the developers intended for the game to be beat on heroic or higher. That's a shit take. It's in the game. If the developers didn't want you to play the game on easy and normal, they wouldn't have put it in the fucking game. My opinion on that doesn't fucking matter, because the developers are designed the game in some way. And even now, my opinion doesn't matter when it comes to a lot of shit, because if it's in the game, it's in the fucking game. If I'm playing a shooter and I'm saying, God, I freaking hate this, I hate that, or if you're a camper, you a bitch. If all you do is sit in corners, you a bitch. If you camp, you a bitch. If you play this way, you are a bitch. I can say all of that, but at the end of the day, it doesn't fucking matter, because it's in the game. You're allowed to play the game however the fuck you want, even if I personally freaking think this or that of it. The same thing goes here. If you want to do freaking summons, you want to use magic, have the fuck at it. If you think someone shouldn't be using freaking magic or shouldn't use summons, that's your opinion. Play the game your way. Don't have any magic built to yourself. Go about your freaking day. The end. That's a video. Good video. Very basic conversation. I think most people who are like level-headed and not narcissistic or weird have the exact same opinion as him. You always have the vocal minority who seem like they're the ones who are telling you, you can't do this, you can't do that. Understand that's what the term means, a vocal minority. You know, they're the minority of the community, but they're the ones who are, you know, the vocal majority. The majority of the community couldn't give a fuck, but the majority of the community aren't making videos, aren't making freaking like posts nonstop to tell you this, and this. Majority of the community are just playing the game and living their fucking life. It's the it's the minority of people who are the vocal majority who are doing all this like mouthing off. Ignore them. Those people are freaking chronically online and weird. Good video. You know, check it out as always. I'll have it linked in the description box. It comes to YouTube channel.